Let's move on to the DHS. This is an interesting story that actually hasn't got a ton of pickup. We can put the first element up on the screen.
That's
for this
E1.
one. It's from Gizmodo, which did a long report on another report that was released by, or made public by Senator Ron Wyden recently. And this is the headline: Homeland Security admits it tried to manufacture fake terrorists for Trump. I think that oversells the story a little bit. I'm not sure that they were trying to manufacture fake terrorists so much as they were overstepping the boundaries of their authority to monitor and sort of make a bigger claim about the security threat than actually existed. And that's not to say in 2020 there was a huge security threat in Portland. There's no downplaying that. DHS, though, seems, if you read this report, which I actually did because I got here a little earlier today, which is unusual, and too early, in fact, like an hour early, and read the entire report, you see that a sort of ill-equipped DHS is monitoring protesters who are not implicated in violence in order to kind of have dossiers on people in Portland that summer.
And so, right, you know the book Three Felonies a Day?
No.
So it's this book by a lawyer that the point behind it is that every person in America
I do know this book.
Commits 3 felonies a day. It's probably a slight exaggeration, but maybe not, because our federal code is so expansive and so interlocking that
You're speaking my language.
just walking down the street can get you caught up in some type of federal code in the hands of a creative federal prosecutor. That's why there's that famous saying that a prosecutor could, a good prosecutor could, in front of a grand jury, could indict a ham sandwich.
Right.
And so now you have a bunch of ham sandwiches running around Portland, and Trump demanding that they find these terror groups. Because if you remember at the time, he's scaring the whole country about Antifa.
Antifa is scaring the whole country about Antifa because they were actually burning Portland.
Yeah, every night, 50 to 100 of these kids would come out all dressed in black and throw bricks through the Bank of America window, and
they set the mayor's building on fire.
They were setting fires. No, it's not cool at all. I would get beat up by the lefties all the time because I would constantly be like, can you guys do something with some purpose here?
Yeah.
Can you stop this? Who are you doing this for?
The autonomous
You're just doing it for yourself.
Those turned out to actually be very dangerous, and there were more than a dozen people by certain metrics that actually died that summer.
Right. And I don't mean to belittle it, but it's still tiny. And every death is a tragedy.
Yes, yes. Although what we're seeing here,
but it wasn't a nationwide uprising.
And if you read the report, I think what we're seeing. I disagree with that because it hits.
Okay, well, for that month.
So
but that wasn't Antifa. They were at the things.
And what's frustrating about this is the same thing actually that we see across intelligence communities. And again, the intelligence community grift is a bipartisan one. We talked about that earlier in the show with lobbying, but it's the same thing. A lot of the people in the intelligence community that abuse their power, they're both Democrats and Republicans. I think we've seen it more from people who tend to be Democrats in the last couple of years than what was on display during the Bush administration. And some Republicans were not open to hearing about how these were actual abuses of power. One of the things we see the FBI consciously involved in right now is expanding the definitions and expanding the scope of inquiries in order to implicate more and more people, in order to monitor and to surveil more and more people, in order to have more power and more funding, et cetera, et cetera. What the DHS was doing here actually seems to fit that narrative pretty perfectly.
So how has the right been responding to this?
Nothing. I mean, I haven't heard anything about it. And maybe that's because well, first of all, we know that's because there's double standards, obviously. But secondly, probably because it's a minor concern in the scope of what the intelligence community is doing right now in terms of domestic terrorists and their classifications of domestic terrorists. But people like Rand Paul, I haven't seen if he said anything about that, you would think would have concerns about this as well. Right,
because that's what the right has to do if they're going to, again, going back to what we were talking about in the first block with Kushner and Hunter Biden, if you're going to complain when they surveil and call you domestic terrorists, you got to do the same when the shoe is on the other foot.
And this is Trump's DHS, so I think a lot of people would say, today there's too little focus on violent left-wing rioters, and still in Portland, for example, and so et cetera, et cetera. That's what
That's
you
for
would
the
hear.
cops. The cops are just on strike out there.
It's
At what point is the right going to be like, hey guys, okay, enough. Like, get back to work.
I don't know.
Like, we get that you were upset. You didn't like the way you were treated in 2020. It's like almost 2023 now. Like you're on salary.
One of the unsung stories of last week is that a Republican was almost elected governor of Oregon. Yeah. It's a very exasperated state, and for some good reason. But I'm with you. I mean, I think a consistent Republican Party would be upset about this. Although I do think it's small in comparison to some of what we've seen in recent years. It fits that same pattern, and it speaks to, I think, the broad rot and a mindset actually that like Dwight Eisenhower and people were worried about forever as we were building up these apparatuses. Like, this power is going to be abused.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.